All right, everybody. Hey, thank you so much for being here. We are here. If you are here expecting to talk about care and candor, you have come to the right place. And this is extension 2 because part 1 was done by Kristen Shanahan. If you were not able to check that out, let us know. We're happy to send you the recording or whatever we need to do to get that in your hands. But this is part 2 of a series when we talk about agent retention, agent engagement. And my topic for today, as a continuation of that, is talking about care and candor. Care and candor. Because last time Kristen talked to you a lot about strategies and tactics and things to do, how to identify possible issues with agents before it blows up into something larger. So we want to take a proactive approach. And this, again, is a continuation of that. So thank you all for being here. Those of you that don't know me, just real quick, my name is Jake Dixon. I'm the founder of The Locker Room. The Locker Room has been in business now for over 4 years. We've served hundreds of real estate brokerages, teams, and literally thousands of agents. And our mission, our passion really, is to do something about the terrible stats out there in our industry, meaning 2 things. We specialize in helping the 97% of agents who currently, right now inside of NAR, sell 24 or fewer homes per year because we refuse to let price be the determining factor on whether or not they can get great coaching, right? And we want to do something about that statistic, which says, what, almost 8, possibly 9 out of 10 agents are no longer in the business within their first 2 years. So one of the easiest ways we know how to do that, the path of least resistance, if you will, is by partnering with people like you. Yes, you, I'm talking to you out there. Leadership of offices, coaches, broker owners, you name it. And that is why we put together these master classes to come from a place of value. Whether we end up partnering with you or not, our job is to get the message, to share, and hopefully have an impact on this industry that we intend on having. So not knowing how you found us, if you want to, not now, because I want your undivided attention, but afterwards you can go to tlrnation.com, and why don't you go ahead and put a /free stuff. So tlrnation.com/free stuff. That is my gift to each and every one of you. Just put in your information and it will unlock some free downloadables for you and your agents. Cool? All right. So without further ado, let's get rolling here. And before I screen share this whole topic of care and candor, right? What do you think of? And I do want you guys' participation today. So go ahead and feel free to blow up the chat box if you don't mind. But care and candor, this is kind of a big package to download here, right? We hear it, we know what it means by and large, but it is hard for a lot of people to put this into practice. And I'm going to ask you why. Why is this difficult, even for some of the best leaders out there? This whole care and candor concept, right? And we're going to talk about that a little bit today. Before we do, this all feeds into the greater good of agent engagement. We know that if agents engage and we can have real, honest conversations, that leads to higher productivity. For example, when I was coaching for 3 years in this specific office, we knew that the agents who are actively engaging with me and our coaching program would earn 255%. Yes, 255% more in GCI than the agents who were just going at it alone, or maybe don't even remember that they had a real estate license to begin with, right? And so there's 3 books that have had a profound impact. And I'm a sharer, I'm a quote junkie, so I want to give you these. If you write anything down today, write these 3 book recommendations down. Number 1, Coactive Coaching. Coactive Coaching. Number 2 is The Coaching Habit. The Coaching Habit. And number 3 is Fierce Conversations. Fierce Conversations. Go ahead and put them on your Audible, download them, whatever you need to do, but there's some great books for you because I want us all to put on our leadership and our coach hats today, if that's okay with you, because I don't know your role within your organization, each and every one of you, but in some capacity, I've got to believe you are a leader of leaders, okay? And a lot of us have to not just focus on training and skill sets, but we also have to become great coaches. I believe the best leaders in their own right are the greatest coaches or consultants, if you will, at the same time. So let's dive into this. I'm going to share my screen with y'all. Not that screen. So hopefully you can see this. Kristen or somebody, would you mind popping in the chat window, letting me know you can see my screen where it should say care versus candor and what's the difference? We can see it. Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, so what's the difference in how to execute unemotionally? This is a shameless plug, guys. If you can see me in the little window, I'm holding up one of our many tools, which is called the Brokerage Field Guide. So those of you who may be watching this and participating with us today, it is on page 65 of your Brokerage Field Guide, okay? Let's keep rolling. So we got to get on the same level playing field here first. I know this is elementary, but just bear with me. I got to tee this up. So what is care? What does it mean to care about something or someone? Well, it says here the provision of what is necessary for the health, welfare, maintenance, and or protection of someone or something. That's what it means to care. Candor, on the other hand, is the quality of being open and honest in expression, also known as frankness. Being direct, and some of you high D personalities out there are like, oh yeah, you're talking my love language now, right? But I want to stress something to you. It's care and candor. That's what we're talking about, not care or candor. And I'm going to build off that here in just a second. So what I mean by that is care must come first, guys. We've all probably heard a lot of quotes around this. But let me first say, you don't get to use your behavioral style, if you're familiar with the DISC or any one of those, to be a jerk. If you say, oh, well, but I'm a high D, so all of a sudden that means I can just be direct and have candor, and if you can't handle it, it's not my fault. No. It's not a justification of who you get to be. We have to express care first. It's care and candor. Because I firmly believe, and I built the locker room with this philosophy in mind, that people do not care how much you know until they know how much you care. What do you guys think of that? Drop a comment in the chat window if you believe that statement. I can't remember who I'm quoting. It's not a Jake Dixon original, darn it. But people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. That is the fundamental truth of anything today that we're going to go over together. We've got to get that right first. You don't have permission to skip over the care part straight to candor, because that, again, makes you look like a jerk. And who wants to be in business with a jerk? Okay, I think I've made my case. Also, this whole care thing, respect is earned. It takes time to establish a level of trust and rapport and respect with another human. And again, that's another way to show that I care about you, is because I respect you. And probably it's going to be reciprocated in return, right? Aren't we supposed to teach people how to treat us? Yeah, of course. Here's the one of the main things I think prevents leaders from having care and candor conversations, and it's right here on this bullet point. Ladies and gentlemen, I know I'm speaking to somebody out there when I say this is not a popularity contest, right? A lot of people will say things like leadership can be lonely. It's not always doing what's popular. It's a matter of doing or saying what's right. And here's one of my mentors, my good friend Hank, often says, I care more about the other person than I actually care about my relationship with them. And I want you to pause and think about what he's actually saying there. Jake, I care more about you than I care about our relationship. In other words, I'm willing to say or ask difficult things that probably nobody else is willing to do, because I really, really care about you. And if you want to be pissed at me for the day, the week, the month, or maybe we break up as friends, you know what? So be it. But I can go to sleep at night knowing that I did what in my heart of hearts was right. And nobody can ever question my integrity around doing what's right, not just being a jerk about it. Okay? So my next question being, are you willing to take a stance? As a leader, as a coach, whatever your role is in the organization, are you willing to take a stance for other people's greatness? Heck, are you willing to take a stance for your own greatness? Are you willing to have someone in your world shine the flashlight and say, here's what you got going on. Here's your blind spots. Here's what you're not doing right. Okay? If we're going to give it, we also got to be able to receive it when it comes to this whole care and candor thing. It's not one-sided. So I want to also ask you to expand your thinking. Sometimes, from my experience coaching and leading, when we use phrase or terms like candor, A lot of people, for some reason, and I know even to a degree of how I've built this up until now, they label that word. They're conditioned to think it's kind of a negative or ugly thing. It's combative, it's confrontational, right? And I'm going to ask you to not necessarily allow your mind to go there, that candor automatically means being confrontational, okay? It's just frankness. It's saying or asking what needs to be said because everyone else is trying to win a popularity contest or run a cheerleading program instead of an organization that really, really actually cares about their people and helping them get what they want. And that sometimes comes with the ugly truth. Not hearing things that you want to hear, not answering questions that you really want to answer because it's uncomfortable. But candor does not always automatically mean discomfort or confrontation. So I'm going to ask us all today to think of it as taking a care-frontational approach versus a confrontational one. What does that look like? How does that sound in real world America? Well, it's a form of, could be asking great questions. Okay, and we're going to go through some of this in greater detail. Asking questions. It's a non-intrusive way if you're doing it the right way, because a lot of people ask questions, but really what they're doing is they're making a statement with a question mark at the end of it. If it's a true self-discovery, thought-provoking, non-judgmental question, that's a form of candor because you're not expecting or holding a bias or emotionally attached to a certain answer that they may have. I'm just asking questions, truly. How can you be upset with me for just asking questions? Second, seeking first to understand. Isn't that conflict resolution 101? Seek first to understand. And yet, how many of us, and I'm saying us, I'm guilty party number one, race to judgment. We assume the worst in somebody or some situation, but we got to breathe. We got to step back from it and seek first to understand so I can have a clear lens at which I look through and or ask questions about before I go, climbing all over somebody about something. I can't approach this with any judgment, no judgment. And we're going to talk more about that here in a second. It's got to be solution oriented. Okay, I'm not going to go down a blame game or a victim mentality mindset. If I'm going to be a leader and lead other people, I've got to come at every angle being a solution, offering a solution, or what if we thought about this way differently? Because that's received better. Nobody likes to be told what to do, but if they feel like they've got a partner, they've got a consultant in their corner with you, odds are they're going to be much more open-minded and receptive to things versus closed-minded and defensive, okay? That's the trickery with this whole care and candor thing. It's such a fine line, and that's why we have to practice this just like anything else. Lastly is asking for permission. Now, just even this week, heck, even probably today, I've screwed this up so many times, you guys. As I sit here and talk about this, I'm not training because I know more about this subject than anybody else on here. But I'm vulnerable enough to say I probably fail at this every day. But I've learned to try to ask for permission to make sure that other person, that agent or whomever it may be, is ready to receive what I have to say. I don't know everything going on in their world. And I don't ace this test every time. I think I just pissed somebody off a couple of days ago, in fact, because I blurt out how I'm thinking or what I'm feeling. And I was like, oh, shoot, if I could just take that back. What I should have done is, hey, so-and-so, do I have permission to be real with you right now? Hey, so-and-so, do I have permission to share a concern or share an observation, share a pattern of behavior with you? And if they say no, you don't go there, because you don't know what they're maybe dealing with, and they have to be receptive to what you're about to say. If they say yeah, then go for it. But we got to ask permission sometimes first before you just blurt it out. All right. So here's a great quote by the one and only Jim Rohn. He says, care without candor creates dysfunctional relationships. Do you guys agree with that? Drop a comment in the chat window if you do. Candor without care creates distant relationships. Aha. But care balanced with candor creates developing relationships. And after all, aren't we all here on this webinar together in the relationship-based business? We want to continue to nurture and develop those relationships. So there's a lot of profound wisdom, especially anybody that knows Jim Rohn in the first place. This is a big one right here. You might want to screenshot your page or something like that, because that's a quote that when I first read it, I was like, ooh, oh, you got to think about what's really being said here. So I want to share that with y'all, but let's get in the meat and taters of what we've got to share with y'all today. So the ultimate question being, how? What do I do from here? How do I incorporate candor specifically, assuming you've got the care thing? Because I believe, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt today, you wouldn't be who you are, successful, title, leadership rank, whatever it is, if you didn't truly care about people. I believe today, every one of you has a servant-driven heart, so we can move past that. So let's just isolate this whole candor thing. Guys, one thing above all else, there's a reason I put this as number one. I believe, and this is an opinion, most of today is an opinion based on experience, that it's all about your environment. That is what I've learned through coaching, consulting, leading. Over time, it's all about the environment. Well, what do I mean? I've said it already. My environment has to feel safe, right? They have to trust you that I'm not going to enter into conversations and run and tattle to some other person in leadership. It stays in these confined walls, just like if you were, visiting the doctor or something like that. It's our business, nobody else's. I've got to create a safe space. I've got to have that space now understood that there's no judgment. I'm a stone cold, poker player. If you say something very vulnerable to me or something that you're quite embarrassed about, I'm going to look at you just like I'm looking at y'all through my camera right now. Right now, I might have a reaction internally, and that's where I've got to filter my own bias. We're humans. I can't control my first thought, but I can control my second and how I respond to that thought. Hello. But I'm not going to come from judgment. I can't let them believe that I'm judging them as they're opening their heart and mind to me across the table. Okay. In many ways, we're a therapist. Okay. Vulnerable and transparent. Now, this goes both ways, you guys. That's why I like to open up to a degree with people in my proximity. I'm very vulnerable, and I hope they would all tell you that. I'm almost probably too transparent at certain times. It's like, hey, dude, TMI, man, But look, this goes both ways. When we talk about the environment, how do I create that? It's by you doing it first. You role modeling the behavior to the point where that other person says, oh, well, if Jake's sharing that, I guess I can feel safe to share this. It's this ping pong back and forth. We are level on the playing field. I'm not above them. They're not below me, okay? We are toe to toe at the same line, just on different journeys. That's all, okay? So treat people like they're human. What do they say about life, right? Life is chaos. You're either in it, you just came out of it, or you're heading towards it, okay? It's this constant rhythm and flow. And that really speaks to the greater thing. When we talk about environment, it's culture. It's how you treat people, right? How we interact with one another, what principles and standards and belief systems we all believe in, one of which I believe in this day and age is authenticity. People's BS meters are through the roof these days, you guys. They can smell you coming from a mile away if you're anything but transparent, authentic, vulnerable, all those things. That's an environment, okay? So if you nail one thing to leave here today to be better and more comfortable yourself in these candor conversations with another person, make sure your environment, above all else, is that of which is an environment that's conducive to real, raw, and authentic conversations. Otherwise, we're going to talk in circles and never get to the root issue. I've got some examples for you on the bottom of the page, right? Agent is timid or resisting to open up. Maybe that's a byproduct of an environment that doesn't meet those requirements. You got to ask yourself these questions. It's not maybe their problem. Maybe my DNA is in it because I haven't created a safe space yet. And that takes time, okay? Maybe they're deflecting through stories, never getting to the real issue. First of all, maybe you've never asked them point blank, what's the real issue? I sense you're dancing around it right now. Do I have permission to ask you a direct question? Great. What's the real issue? Let's just cut to it. Okay. But again, perhaps it's because of the environment. Agent is demonstrating a victim mentality. Maybe your culture within your organization is one where we always point the finger and pass blame, and it's always somebody else's fault. Again, speed of the leader, speed of the team. What's your DNA in that? And then again, first mental checklist is, what is my environment? What's the culture I've created? Is it a culture that actually has inadvertently created a victim mentality? Or is it a culture of extreme ownership and transparency where we can talk real, get to the root problem, and provide real solutions with no judgment because of our safe space? Okay, there's a lot of factors. I'm just giving you some examples here to consider. Number two, I've got 4 of them for you today. So 1, it's your environment. Number 2, you got to set proper expectations. You guys know all this stuff. For a lot of you, there's not necessarily anything new today, but you're here for a reason, and odds are it's because you haven't yet mastered this. Okay, so do your agents, I'm going to talk agents or staff, do they know the standards? I just got on a whole tangent about this. In fact, next Friday, if you have agents who want to join me, next Friday at 11 o'clock Central Time, I'm going to be doing a 5-a-day to 100K free webinar for agents. Part of my point there is, and I'm going to talk to y'all as leaders who are hiring people, why are we the only industry, by and large, who doesn't recruit or attract people to a job description, a clear description of performance standards that they're going to be held accountable to? Every other job that we've ever carried, you know exactly what your responsibilities are and how you're going to be graded on whether or not you get to keep that job. And yet in real estate, we enter most offices because they're going to hire you because you have a license and a pulse. Can I get an amen? And it's, hey, come over here because you get this. Our splits are that. Here's a shiny object. Here's our great technology. That's why you should join us. And never once was it ever, in all fairness to the other person, discussed of what their job description is. What is your real estate job description if you come to XYZ Realty? Come on, we got to be better. So part of that is setting proper expectations so I can have care and candor conversations with people. I can loop them back to, remember we had this conversation, remember you signed that agreement acknowledging I could hold you accountable to these things. That typically does a lot of the heavy lifting. If you've ever sold a home in your life, you know that a big percentage of our job as real estate people is setting and managing expectations. And if you've done your job, you can always point back and circle back to prior conversations and agreements. What does that accountability look like? What's the frequency? Hey, what would that look like if before I bring you into my world, we have an expectations dialogue and I ask you and give you a chance to ask me back, hey, person, should we ever find ourselves in a situation that might be slightly uncomfortable or needs to be addressed head on, how would you want me to approach that? And you write down what they say. And then you get a chance to say, all right, if we're ever in that situation, here's how I would like for you to handle it with me as well. What if we just had a meeting of the minds and an agreement before it ever becomes a problem? So again, I can bust that sheet out and say, see, you told me anytime we had an issue, here's how you would like me to handle it with you. That's what I'm doing. I'm honoring that commitment. It becomes super easy. There's nothing to hide from. There is no popularity contest to worry about because it's already been discussed. Be proactive, not reactive about this stuff. Some agents, some people on your leadership or staff don't even know what the consequences are. In many situations, there isn't any. I'm on this kick right now to make 5 conversations a day. 5 conversations a day for 5 days a week for 50 weeks out of the year results in 1,250 real estate conversations. If they convert 2%, a 50 to 1 conversion ratio, that means they're going to consistently close 25 sales a year. Now, if they don't do that, because it's in a written, standardized job description, if they don't do that, what are the consequences? What does the frequency of accountability look like? The consequences should be we're no longer in business together as long as I've given you some warning shots over your head. You're not living up to your agreement. If you went to a traditional job, how long would you keep your job there if you weren't performing and showing up for work? Why should I keep you on payroll? Okay? It's no different. We got to treat this better, and we got to set those better expectations so they can have a chance at fulfilling them. Okay, some examples there at the bottom. Agent has a lack of clarity on what performance standards are. That's what we were just talking about. How can you come down on somebody or have a candor conversation when they don't even know what you're holding them accountable to or what's even expected of them? Agent consistently, this is a big one. If you've coached or led people, right? Agent consistently does not do what they say they will. It's session after session, week after week. Oh, sure, yeah, I'll do that. And then next week they come back and say, oh, nope, my dog ate my homework and all the other excuses on the planet. At some point, it's our job, if proper expectations have been set, to use one of those strategies earlier, like a permission question. I might say, listen, agent, do I have your permission to share an observation? I've noticed some patterns going on. Do I have your permission to be real for a second? And let's hope 9.9 times out of 10, they're going to say, sure. Say, look, I've got to ask a question. Where else might this pattern of behavior be showing up in your world right now? See, I've noticed lately that every week you say you're going to do something, and yet your audio is not matching your video. And I'm concerned for you because I know you said how important it was to you to close those 25 deals a year so you can take your kids on that Disney cruise. So I'm just curious, is that still important to you, or has that goal changed? That's a candor question, very even. I'm not shouting, I'm just asking questions. I don't have an emotional buy-in necessarily if they say, Jake, actually, yeah, my goals did change. We're not going on that cruise anymore because there's this virus thing out there. Okay, I'm not asking that question as a loaded question, and in my mind, it's already made up how you're going to answer. No, that's bias. That's judgment. I'm just asking the question, and whatever you say is okay by me because my job is to help you get what you want. Is this making sense to y'all out there? I see some comments in the chat window and stuff like that. Yes, I can definitely get you the slides. No problem, guys. We're going to mail out the recording. We can include the slides. Okay. I'm going to rant on this one a little bit later. I'm warning you. But this one right here, third bullet point under examples, an agent in this case, let's say, seems unmotivated or no sense of urgency. I'm going to circle back to that one towards the end, so bear with me on that. But just note, all right, Jake, you told us you were going to talk about that. Let's hear it. Okay, so I will come back to that. And then engagement. If an agent is not engaging with the organization, they're not showing up to team meetings or group coaching sessions or whatever your thing is that circling back to a failure on your end to set proper expectations? How can you ask them or call them out in a fierce conversation when they didn't even know in the first place that you were expecting them to show up? And I know, it should be Captain Obvious. Why wouldn't they want to come listen to you? Because you're amazing. But the reality is life hits people and they have to shuffle what they see as a priority to fit in their schedule every day, because after all, we're the busiest we've ever been. Not really. But most people will claim, I'm so busy, I'm so busy. Set proper expectation, you guys. Give them a chance, and then you have permission to have the candor portion of that conversation if they're failing to meet those expectations. One last comment on this. The gap that's exposed between expectation and reality. If there is a gap there, guess what? That is where resentment builds. And who is that good for? Nobody. And if I don't address it like that, resentment will grow and grow and grow, and that gap gets wider and wider and wider, and now you've got a real big problem on your hand. So as long as I set that standard and expectation, and there's been an agreement for it, now if there ever is the slightest of gaps, it's my responsibility, and I have permission to shine light on it. But until then, you might have more DNA in this whole thing than you care to admit, and perhaps that's why you're uncomfortable having a candor conversation, because you know you're kind of guilty party number one. All right, I'm speaking truth today. Third one of the four, stay unemotional. Holy moly, is this one tough? We're humans, we're emotional creatures. Are you kidding me? We grow up hearing things during trainings like logic makes people think, emotion makes people act. Hey, look, there's truth in all that. But we've got to keep our emotions between the lines. I played college and professional baseball, you guys, and it was always ingrained into my brain when I was 12 years old and actually 11 years old. If I ever showed emotion out on that mound, my butt was yanked. And I was just through college and professional ball, I had coaches in my world who demanded that. You don't disrespect the game. You don't kick the dirt. You don't slam your helmet. You don't throw your hat. You don't turn your back on your teammates. None of that. If you've got an issue, we'll handle that in the locker room. But you don't disrespect the game. This game is so much bigger than you. The people who've played it before you and the people who are going to play it after you. Zero emotion. Whether you hit a home run or you struck out, you walk back to that dugout with the same expression. You don't show up your teammates. You don't show up your competition. That's just how I was raised, guys. It's not right or wrong necessarily, but I do believe there's a principle in that. You keep your emotions between the lines. Okay? This is very hard because oftentimes we want it more for them, come on now, than they want it for themselves. True? True or true in many cases. That's at least what it feels like. You can't want it more for somebody else than they want it for themselves. It is so incredibly hard, and it stems from such an amazing place because you're awesome and your heart is gold. But that's what I've got to balance as a leader. I've got to realize I can't do it for them. I can't want it more for them, because when I find myself going there, I become emotional. I get wrapped up in their stuff. And therefore, once that happens, my lens at which I see people and how I think and act becomes foggy. It's my job to keep an arm's length from the situation and unemotional from whatever happens. But don't confuse that by not showing that you care. So just a fine line, guys, and we can get into that in a separate day, separate training. Separate yourself from the situation, see it for what it is. Some people got to get that out-of-body experience, right? And that's a great way of asking questions. Hey, Sally Sue, if your friend was going through what you're going through, what advice would you give her? Guys, that's a great question, because when it's in your own world and you're in your own mind, it's hard to think. It's hard to make judgments. But if I can ask a simple question where I basically give that person an out-of-body experience, voila, wouldn't you know it? They've got great advice for their friend. Right? And that's called self-discovery. So I'm like, So are you going to take your own advice? Okay. Candor. Candor's not always confrontational. Sometimes candor is just asking the obvious, the most direct thing, or saying the obvious or most direct thing that, believe it or not, their own family and best friend doesn't even have the courage to say to them. Again, this is not a popularity contest. And do you care more about the person than you actually care about their relationship? I know that's funky, but think about it. I'm willing to stand up for them and say what needs to be said, even if they want to be pissed off at me. But I guarantee 9.9 times out of 10, they will come full circle, even possibly years down the road, and thank you. I've had it happen to me, and I've done it to certain people too. Like, hey, you know what? I was just in a state of being immature business owner, an immature baseball player. And looking back at that moment, knowing what I know now, I realized what you were doing for me. And I'm so embarrassed, but I just want to say thank you. And I hope you'll forgive me for acting the way I did, but I get it now. And thank you. Guys, hopefully all of you in some capacity have had that kind of thing happen to you, right? I think, again, just this week, I think, maybe she hasn't told me, but I think I made somebody upset. But just the other day, she actually said, you know what? And I'm paraphrasing, I didn't want to hear what you had to say, Jake. But now that you've said it, it's got me thinking. And I realized this is how I've been showing up. And, you know, maybe I could have said it differently or approached it differently. That's on me. I'm learning too. But the point is, they were actually grateful and thankful, not resentful that I said and stood up for them, even if the delivery wasn't perfect. You with me? Okay. Some examples of that are agents not taking personal responsibility. You could get frustrated. You can feel your blood pressure rising. Stay unemotional. Take a deep breath. Relax. Keep your cool. Keep your emotions between the lines. Hey, look, a lot of people, a lot of agents turn to you and you're supposed to be the rock. You're supposed to be the one that's got it all figured out, right? Wrong. There are days that your own stress can cloud the conversation, right? Maybe it was something personal, something business. It's just got your fuse a little shorter than normal. And I just don't want to deal with other people's stuff today. And that can make you show up differently in that one-on-one or group conversation and kind of snap. And that, I get it. But as long as I have the awareness to keep my emotions in check, and if I'm feeling that way, it's better to possibly even reschedule with that person versus showing up in a way that might damage the relationship as a result. Okay. Patterns of behavior. Look, that goes to the creating a label. That goes to judgment. If you, and I've done this, I'll be the one to be the guinea pig. Certain agents, if I'm coaching them, they're part of my organization. I'm like, oh no, I've got to meet with Billy Bob today. Great. I felt that way. Maybe I'm a terrible human being, but there's certain people, unfortunately, that I was labeling due to a pattern of their behavior. But guess what I learned? I allowed it. I chickened out. I never brought my concerns to the forefront to give them a chance to explain it to me or give them a chance to correct their behavior, right? So I created a label of this person that they were lazy or that they were unmotivated or whatever it was, when in reality, it starts with me. I'm the one who had the issue because I didn't even give them a chance to by bringing it up, okay? Last one is asking powerful questions, and I've got a few of them here for you. How do I incorporate candor into my conversations? Number 4 is by asking powerful questions. Again, by asking a question, it's a far less intrusive way sometimes from just saying it, okay? Just saying it. Sometimes that can be grossly misinterpreted as an attack or an accusation versus coming from curiosity and seeking first to understand. So here's some great questions. I'll just breeze through them. What are you pretending not to know? Well, Jake, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, all right, time out. You're an adult. What are you pretending not to know? Where else is this pattern showing up in your life? I use that one all the time. If I had an agent who is notoriously late, let's say they're always 5 minutes late. You know who they are. You know, maybe it's some of you. And I would say, look, do I have permission to share an observation? Blah, blah, blah. Yes, you do. Great. Well, I'm concerned because I've observed over our last 4 coaching meetings, you've shown up late to every single one of them. And I just have a real simple question. Where else is that pattern of behavior showing up in your life? And then shut up and let them answer. Because I guarantee it that they're 5 minutes late to church. They're 5 minutes late to dropping their kids off. On and on and on. It's a pattern. Okay? Asking that question, something as basic as that could actually change somebody's world because nobody's ever asked them that before. Another one, what do you want me to believe you're doing, but you're actually not doing it? I love that one. Like, go ahead and tell on yourself. I don't need all the excuses. What do you want me to believe you're doing, but you're actually not doing it? Do you intend on changing your actions or do you intend on changing your goal? Okay. What is causing this pattern of behavior or habit? I shared this one earlier with you. What advice would you give XYZ if they were in a similar situation? That's that out-of-body experience one. Where else might you be self-sabotaging your own success? Is that the real issue? Because they're going to talk in circles and dance around and say on the superficial stuff, and I might just do a pattern interrupt and say, excuse me, is that the real issue? Okay, and snap them out of it, and let's just cut to the chase, guys. All right, so here we go. We're rounding the corner. Stay with me, okay? Take a stance for their greatness. I'm asking you, why did you hire them in the first place? And here's what I mean. I said this earlier, I warned you. Guys, I believe deeply that there's no such thing as an unmotivated person. And one of those books that I gave you, Coactive Coaching, actually talks about this, that if you see everybody as whole and resourceful and all these wonderful things that God created them, there's no such thing as an unmotivated person. Stop saying that. Oh, that agent's just unmotivated. No, they're not. No, they're not. Don't you dare give up on them that easily. I don't believe there's a single soul on planet Earth that says, "Ooh, I really want to fail. Nothing in life motivates me. I'm just a total slug." Yeah, right. Possibly the gap is you just haven't helped them enough by asking better questions, such as, hey, tell me about what you're really passionate about. Tell me about what comes supernatural for you. What were your strengths in your former careers that might transfer over to real estate? See, when somebody's passionate about something, they show up motivated. But if it's not natural for them to want to cold call a FSBO every day of their life, you can't hold that against them. You can't, right? There's no such thing as an unmotivated person. And no, Susan, I'm not talking about teenagers. Don't get me started on that. Yeah, but there really isn't. They're showing up a certain way, but deep down, there's something that they authentically enjoy, they're naturally gifted at. My job is to help them bridge the gap of how that can be applied to real estate, especially in the world of lead generation. Sometimes as leaders, we got to look in the mirror. Am I the lid to their success? I hired this person into my company, and now all of a sudden I catch myself judging and giving up on them and writing them off because after all, they're unmotivated. Maybe the problem's actually me. Maybe I'm the one that needs to get out of the way. Why did I hire them in the first place? Perhaps the problem is I hired them to no job description. So it's more my fault than it is theirs. I don't know. I think we got to look at ourselves first before we place blame on others, right? And by the way, it is possible that real estate actually is not for them, because I'm not going to love on somebody so much to the point where I just, love them right out of this business. I have literally told people, agents, in fact, that I don't think real estate's for you. And I've gotten out of business with other coaches and leaders just because it wasn't a good fit. And we were able to have that respectful, fierce conversation. And this is something that our coach has said to us numerous times in the past several months, is clear is kind, unclear is unkind. It's that simple. So have I been crystal clear with this employee? Have I been crystal clear with that agent? If not, then I'm actually the one who's been unkind. So clear is kind, unclear is unkind. And I know all of us want to be kind people, right? Okay, I thought so. Guys, this is a big subject. This is a really big subject, but I hope you see that the benefits outweigh any discomfort. Some of you probably know conversations that need to happen right now. They need to happen yesterday, but they haven't. And sometimes it's because we put our own ego in front of what needs to be said, because I care for the other person. Our own ego or our own discomfort, well, that's going to be, I'm awkward. I really don't want to have that conversation, because if I say this, and then they're going to say that, and then I'm going to say this, and we play this all out in our brains when you don't know. How would you feel? How have you felt? If there's ever been a time where a friend or a family member knew something and they withheld it from you, how did that make you feel? If anything, it probably compounded the issue versus how you would have felt if they just hit you with it. At least there's a respect there that they think highly enough about you to tell you what's going on, whether you want to hear it or not. It actually compounds the more you don't. So clear is kind, unclear is unkind. The benefits outweigh the discomfort. It's not about you. It's not about how that other person may respond. It's about your heart and knowing that out of integrity, out of care, you said or asked that person what needed to be said or asked. I don't have to be right. I'm going to get it wrong plenty of times. And thank God the people I'm in business with know I really care. There's no doubt about that. If you're in my circle, I care deeply. And that affords me some grace when I get things wrong. Or maybe something comes out of my mouth that I wish I could take back because I just blurted it. That's the candor side. But damn it, they're willing to forgive me and forget or move on because they know even if it wasn't right, even if it wasn't said perfectly, my heart was in the right place when I said it. And for that, it gives you a lot of grace. You with me? It creates honest, authentic, judgment-free environments that promote extreme ownership. Who wouldn't want that? What if every agent within your organization was bullet point one there? Drama down equals productivity up. Well, guess what? Drama up equals productivity down. When we don't address things, we don't treat people like adults, it's going to snowball. It's going to create, let's call it drama, that you're sooner or later you're going to have to address. So why not do it early before it can mount into something much, much more toxic? Candor. Get in front of it. Builds loyalty. If you're having care and candor conversations, people know where you stand. They don't ever have to question what Jake's thinking or what Jake's feeling. They know where I stand. And oddly enough, through that, it creates a bond. It creates a sense of loyalty that I'm always going to keep it real. Okay? It deepens our relationship and respect for one another. It allows us, but just even this week in multiple examples, we can cut to the cheese, man. Let's have effective and efficient conversations. If we can't talk about the real issue, or we can't get to the heart of the matter to advance forward and help everybody get what they want, we're just talking in circles. We're just having meetings to have meetings, and there's nothing more annoying than that. So it actually enables you to be more effective and more efficient if we can create an environment that fosters care and candor. And lastly, as you see there on your screen, role modeling. Teach people how to treat us. You cannot complain about what you tolerate. So if you wish an agent would have come to you directly and said, hey, I'm going to switch brokerages because blah, and you got offended that they were going around your back and interviewing with all these companies, look, maybe there's times that you could have been more direct with them back. It's no fun to feel like you're sneaking around, and I'm giving kind of worst case scenarios here, but the bottom line is I get a chance to role model. Here's what I expect, and then watch what happens. Agents will grow into that conversation with each other and back with you because there's a loyalty, there's a trust. They're going to come to you and say, coach, or hey, leader, here's what I got going on. Here's what I'm seeing. I'm concerned. I don't want to see the organization go down. All of a sudden, there's more people that got your back. I'll never forget the feeling that me and a group of teammates had for our college coach. We wanted to win and play so bad for coach, more than ourselves. We wanted to win for him. And that's a pretty amazing thing. And it's an environment he created, knowing what I know now. I get it. What if you created an environment like this, where your agents, your players wanted to play so hard for you to go out and win that championship? Instead of saying, what's in it for me, and I hope I hit my goals this year, what if they started worrying not just about that, but also about the team goals, your goals? That's a pretty special place to be. So, guys, I know I'm pushing time here. This is a lot to cover. And because I don't get to interact with you unless it's in the chat window, let me know if there's any questions. I can stick around. But while you're doing that, if you want to pop and ask any questions or share any aha moments, that would be great. Otherwise, here's my information if you want to reach out personally. If you haven't checked this out, there's our website specifically for brokerages and or teams. You go here. But let's hear from you guys. Any questions before we wrap up this session? And by the way, yes, before somebody might ask, we will email the recording out. And I can make a point of sharing the slides as well for those of you who are asking about that. So any questions, you guys, before we close out today? And if not, that's okay too. But before you exit, let me thank you for being here, because I know you could be doing 1,000,001 things with 52 minutes of your life, and you chose to be here. And I hope you got something valuable from this, or some of you, maybe it was just a great reminder for what you already knew, but maybe have strayed away from putting into practice. So yeah, and yes, we had a great question in the chat window. We can make sure you guys get session 1 as well. That would be super, super simple to do. So if you guys would email me there, or talk to whomever might have, whoever might have invited you to this, we can somehow, some way make sure that you get the first session in addition to this one, okay? All right, guys, I'm going to close it out from there, and want to thank you guys again. My name's Jake. Here, if you need anything, we're happy to be a resource. We do a lot of these master classes, so check back often, and we appreciate y'all being here. Thank you very much. All right, see y'all later.